Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yata Parakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Sya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Saganaraganatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sabadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Paran Sahagana Lalita Shivishakam Vitam Sya Om Jnana Timarandasya Janardan Shalakaya Chakshurum Nitam Yena Tasma Shri Gurave Namah Gurva Bishtam Supurakam Gurvanarasisha Sambhushitam Chintya Staveda Nipanam Shri Rupa Patanagam Govindabhidam Ujwalam Bharatanum Bhaktyanvidam Sundaram Bande Vishwagurun Shah Divyad Bhagavat Premno Ebija Pradam Devam Divyatanum Suchandavananam Balarka Chelanchitam Sandrananda Puram Sadekavaranam Vairagya Vidyambunim Sri Siddhantanidim Subhakti Lasitam Saraswatanam Baram Bandetam Shubharam Maneka Sharanam Nyashishwara Shridharam Vanshakopatarubyasya Kripa Sindhubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah Namo Mahamananyaya Krishna Prema Pradayate Krishnaya Krishna Chaitanya Namane Gauratavishe Nama. So we're hearing from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, translation and commentary by Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupad. This is Madhya-lila chapter 12. The cleansing of the Gundicha Temple. Shri Gundicha Mandiram Atma Brindai Samarjayan Shalanata Sagoraha Swachitavats Chitalam Ujvalam Cha Krishnopavesho Payikam Chakara. So text 1. Shri Gundicha Mandiram Atma Vrindai Samarjayan Shalanata Shigoraha Swachitta Chitalam Ujvalam Cha Krishnopavesho Bhayikam Shakara. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu washed and cleansed the Gundicha Temple with his devotees and associates. In this way, he made it as cool and bright as his own heart, and thus he made the temple a befitting place for Lord Shri Krishna to sit. Jaya Jaya Gaura Chandra Jaya Nityananda Jaya Dvaita Chandra Jaya Gaura Bhaktavrinda. All glories to Gaura Chandra, all glories to Sri Nityananda, all glories to Sri Advaita Chandra, and all glories to the devotees of Lord Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Jaya Jaya Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktagan Shakti Deho Korejena Chaitanya Varnan. All glories to the devotees of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, headed by Srivas Thakur. I beg their power so that I can properly describe Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Purbe Dakina Hoite Prabhu Jabi Aila Tare Milite Gajapati Utkantita Hoila. When Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu returned from his South India tour, Maharaj Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, became very anxious to meet him. Kataka hoite patri dila sarvabhaumatai prabhuragya hoya jadi dekibare jai. The king sent a letter from his capital, Katak, to Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, entreating him to obtain the Lord's permission so that he could go and see him. Bhattacharya likhila prabhur agyana hoila punarapi rajatare patri patala. Replying to the king's letter, the Bhattacharya wrote that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had not given his permission. After this, the king wrote him another letter. Prabhura nikati ache jata bhaktagan moralagi tasavare koreha nivedan. In this letter, the king requested Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, please appeal to all the devotees associated with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and submit this petition to them on my behalf. Se sab doyalu more haya sadai. Moralage Prabhupade Koribe Binoy. If all the devotees associated with the Lord are favorably disposed toward me, they can submit my petition at the lotus feet of the Lord. Tasabar Prasade Mile Sri Prabhur Pai Prabhu Kripa Binamora Rajanahibai. By the mercy of all the devotees, one can attain the shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord. Without his mercy, my kingdom does not appeal to me. Jadi mora kripana koribe gorahari rajachari jogi hoy babikari. If Gorahari, Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will not show mercy to me, I will give up my kingdom, become a mendicant, and beg from door to door. Bhattacharya Patrideki Chintita Haya Bhaktagana Pashag Gela Se Patriloya. When the Bhattacharya received this letter, he became very anxious. He then took the letter and went to the devotees of the Lord. Sabare Miliya Kohila Raja Bivaran Piche Se Patri Sabare Korala Darshan. Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya met with all the devotees. Sarvabhaum Bhattacharya met with all the devotees and described the king's wishes. Then he presented the letter to all of them for inspection. Patri deki sabar mane hoila bishmoy Prabhupade gajapatir eta bhakti hoy. Upon reading the letter, everyone was astonished to see that King Prataparudra had so much devotion for the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sabe kohe prabhutare kabun nabmilibe ami sab kohe jari dukkha se manibe. The devotees gave their opinion and said, the Lord will never meet the king, and if we requested him to do so, the Lord would surely feel very unhappy. Sarvabhauma kohe sabe chala ekbar militena kohiba raja vyavahar. Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya then said, we shall go once again to the Lord, but we shall not request him to meet the king. Rather, we shall simply describe the good behavior of the king. Ita bole sabe gela Mahaprabhur stane kohite unmukha sabe na kohe bachane. Having thus reached a decision, they all went to the place of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. There, although ready to speak, they could not even utter a word. Prabhu kohe ki kohite sabar agaman dekiye kohite chahana kahaki karan. After they arrived at Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's place, the Lord, seeing them, said, what have you all come here to say? I see that you want to say something, but you do not speak. What is the reason? Nityananda kohe tomai chahi nivedite na kohile rohite nari kohite baichite. Nityananda Prabhu then said, we want to tell you something. Although we cannot stay without speaking, we are still very much afraid to speak. Joga jogya tomai sab chahi nivedite Tomana milile raja chahe jogi hoite. We want to submit before you something that may or may not be befitting. The matter is this, unless he sees you, the king of Orissa will become a mendicant. Kanem mudra loem mui hoiba bikari rajaboga nahi chite bina gorahari. Nityananda Prabhu continued, the king has decided to become a mendicant and accept the sign of a mendicant by wearing an ivory earring. He does not want to enjoy his kingdom without seeing the lotus feet of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. In India, there is still a class of professional mendicants who are very much like the gypsies of Western countries. They know some magical art and mystical processes, and their business is to beg from door to door, sometimes pleading and sometimes threatening. Such mendicants are sometimes called yogis and sometimes kanafata yogis. The word kanafata refers to one who has put a hole in his ear to wear an earring made of ivory. Maharaj Prataparudra was so depressed by not getting to see Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu that he decided to become such a yogi. Ordinary men think that a yogi must have an ivory earring in his ear, but this is not the sign of a real yogi. Maharaj Prataparudra also thought that to become a mendicant yogi, one must wear such an earring. Dekiba se mukha chandra naya bariya dariba se parapadma hridoya tuliya. So Maharaj Prataparudra was thinking that he would become a mendicant, give up his kingdom and beg from door to door unless Mahaprabhu would see him. Dekiba se mukha chandra naya bariya dariba se parapadma hridoya tuliya. Nityananda Prabhu continued. The king also expressed his desire to see the moon-like face of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu to his eyes' full satisfaction. He would like to raise the lotus feet of the Lord to his heart. Jajapi Shuniya Prabhur Kamala Hoiman Tatapi Bahire Kohe Nishtura Bachan. Hearing all these statements, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's mind was certainly softened, but externally he wished to speak some harsh words. Tomasabar Icha E Amare Laya Rajake Mukha Ihan Katake Tegiya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, I can understand that you all desire to take me to Katak to see the king. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is naturally the reservoir of all kindness, and as soon as he heard the statement made by the king, his heart immediately softened. Thus the Lord was ready to go see the king even at Katak. He did not even consider allowing the king to come from Katak to Jagannath Puri to see him. It is significant that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu was so kind that he was ready to go see the king at Katak. Apparently, it was never expected the king wanted to see the Lord at his palace. But by way of being externally harsh, the Lord indicated that if all the devotees so desired, he would go to Katak to see the king. So Mahaprabhu just says, I can understand that you all desire to take me to Katak to see the king. And Nityananda Prabhu had not said that, but Mahaprabhu wanted to speak some harsh words. So, Paramartha Thakur Loke Koribe Nindan. Paramartha Thakur Loke Koribe Nindan. Loke Rahu Damodara Koribe Bhartsan. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, what to speak of spiritual advancement? All the people will blaspheme me. And what to speak of all the people? Damodar Pandit would chastise me. So, because Damodar Pandit's always chastising or correcting Mahaprabhu. So this was not good. But Mahaprabhu says, not only will everybody criticize me, but especially Damodar. He'll do that. Tomasavar agyayami na mili rajare damodar kohe jabe milina tabe tare. I shall not meet the king at the request of all the devotees, but I shall do so if Damodar will give his permission. Damodar kohe tumi swatantra ishwar kartabya sabat tomara gochar. Damodar Pandit immediately replied, my lord, you are the fully independent Supreme Personality of Godhead. Since everything is known to you, you know what is permissible and what is not permissible. Amikon kudra jiva, tomake bidi diva, apane milibe tare taha dekiba. I'm merely an insignificant jiva, So what power do I have to give directions to you? By your own personal choice, you will meet with the king. I shall see it. So Damodar Pandit was of the habit of correcting Mahaprabhu's behavior, because sometimes he thought Mahaprabhu was not knowing all the intricacies of social behavior. So Damodar Pandit would correct him. So Mahaprabhu makes a point of this, saying, if I go meet with the king, everybody will criticize me. But not only that, especially Damodar will do that. So then Damodar Pandit says, I am merely an insignificant Shiva. So what power do I have to give directions to you? By your own personal choice, you will meet with the king. I shall see it. Raja tomare sneha kore tumi sneho bas tara snehe karabe tare tomara paras. The king is very much attached to you, and you are feeling affection and love toward him. Thus I can understand that by virtue of the king's affection for you, you will touch him. Jajapi Ishwara tumi paramaswatantra tatapi swabhabe how prema paratantra. Although you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead and are completely independent, still you are dependent on the love and affection of your devotees. That is your nature. Nityananda kohe aiche hoy konjan se tomare kohe kora raja darshan. Nityananda Prabhu then said, who is there in the three worlds who can ask you to see the king? Kintu anuraget loker swabhava ek hoy ishtana pailer nija prananat chadoy. Still, isn't it the nature of an attached man to give up his life if he does not attain his desired object? Yagike brahmani sab tahate brahman Krishna lage patiage charile kapran. For instance, some of the wives of the Brahmins who were performing sacrifices gave up their lives in the presence of their husbands for the sake of Krishna. This refers to the day Lord Sri Krishna and his cowherd boys and flocks of animals were present in the pasturing grounds near Mathura. So they were there with their cows in the pasturing grounds near Mathura. At that time, the cowherd boys, being a little hungry, requested food, and Lord Krishna asked them to go to the Brahmins who were engaged nearby in performing yajna or sacrifice, and to get some food from that yajna. Being so ordered by the Lord, all the cowherd boys went to the Brahmins and asked them for food, but they were denied. After this, the cowherd boys begged food from the wives of the Brahmins. All these wives were very much devoted to Lord Krishna in spontaneous love, and as soon as they heard the request of the cowherd boys and understood that Krishna wanted some food, they immediately left the place of sacrifice. They were very much chastised for this by their husbands, and they were ready to give up their lives. It is the nature of a pure devotee to sacrifice his life for the transcendental loving service of the Lord. So when the cowherd boys asked the Brahmins who were doing a yajna nearby for some remnants of the yajna so that they could take that food for Krishna, then the cowherd boys said, "Oh, these boys don't bother us." But the wives of the Brahmins immediately went to Krishna, even though they were forbid by their husband. They went to Krishna, taking food. So here it is said, Nityananda says, for instance, some of the wives of the Brahmins who were performing sacrifices gave up their lives in the presence of their husbands for the sake of Krishna. Some of them were stopped from going to Krishna, and they abandoned their bodies and went to Krishna in their spiritual bodies. Ekjuktiyanche jade kora abadan tumina mili leha tare rohitara pran. Nityananda Prabhu then submitted one suggestion for the Lord's consideration. There is a way, he suggested, by which you need not meet the king, but which would enable the king to continue living. Ek bahirbas jadi deho kripa kori iha bhaya pranarake tomara ashadori. If you, out of your mercy, send one of your outer garments to the king would live hoping to see you sometime in the future. So, a sannyas dhoti, or in the case of a sannyas dhoti, is shorter than a regular dhoti. It's called a bahirbas. Here it's being translated as outer garment, but it's a sannyas dhoti. So if out of your mercy, if you out of your mercy send one of your outer garments or your bahirbas to the king would live hoping to see you sometime in the future. Sri Nityananda Prabhu was thus very tactfully suggesting that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu give a piece of his old clothing to the king. Even though the king was not to meet the king would then be pacified by receiving such a cloth. The king was very anxious to see the Lord, yet it was not possible for the Lord to see him. Just to resolve the situation, Nityananda Prabhu suggested that the Lord send an old piece of clothing. Thus the king would understand that the Lord was showing mercy to him. The king would then not do anything drastic like giving up his life or becoming a mendicant. Prabhu ko he tumi sab parama vidvan je balo hoy se kora samadan. The Lord said, since you are all very learned personalities, whatever you decide I shall accept. Tabe Nityananda Gosai Govindera Bash Magiya Loila Prabhur Ek Bahirbas. Lord Nityananda Prabhu then obtained a garment used by the Lord by requesting it from Govinda. Se Bahirbas Sarvabhauma Pashadila Sarvabhauma Se Bastra Rajare Patala. Thus Nityananda Prabhu delivered the old cloth into the care of Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya, and Sarvabhauma Bhattacharya sent it to the king. Bastrapaya Rajar Hoila Aninditaman Prabhu Rupa Kore Kore Bastrara Pujan Bastrapaya Rajar Hoila Nanditaman Prabhu Rupa Kore Kare Mastrera Pujan. When the king received the old cloth, he began to worship it exactly as he would worship the Lord personally. Ramananda Rai Jabe Dakina Hoite Aila Prabhu Sange Rohite Rajake Nibedila. After returning from his service in South India, Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to remain with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Tabe Raja Santoshe Tahare Agyadila Apane Milana Lagi Shadite Lagila. When Ramananda Roy requested the king to allow him to stay with the Lord immediately gave him permission with great satisfaction. As for the king himself, he began to solicit Ramananda Roy to make a meeting arrangement. Mahaprabhu Mahakripa Koranatomare More Milibare Avasya Shadhibe Tahare. The king told Ramananda Roy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is very, very merciful to you. Therefore, please solicit my meeting with him without fail. Iksange Duijan Ketre Jabiaila Ramananda Rai Tabe Prabhure Milila. The king and Ramananda Roy returned together to Jagannath Kshetra, Puri, and Sri Ramananda Roy met Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Prabhupada Prema Bhakti Janaila Rajar Prasangapaya Ache Kohe Bar. At that time, Ramananda Rai informed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu about the ecstatic love of the king. Indeed, as soon as there was some opportunity, he repeatedly informed the Lord about the king. Rajamantri Ramananda Jaba Hare Nipun Rajapriti Kohe Dravaila Prabhurman. Sri Ramananda Roy was indeed a diplomatic minister for the king. His general behavior was very expert, and simply by describing the king's love for Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he gradually softened the Lord's heart, or the Lord's mind. Utkantate Prataparudra Nare Rahivare Ramananda Shadile Lena Prabhore Milibare. Maharaj Prataparudra, in great anxiety, could not endure not seeing the Lord. Therefore, Sri Ramananda Roy, by his diplomacy, arranged a meeting with the Lord for the king. Ramananda Prabhupada Koila Nivedan Ekbar Prataparudre Dekaha Charan. So Ramananda Roy, it says here, it's solicited to Mahaprabhu to meet with the king. Ramananda Prabhupada Koila Nivedan Ekbar Prataparudre Dekaha Charan. Sri Ramananda Roy frankly requested Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, please show your lotus feet to the king at least once. Prabhu Kohe Ramananda Kaha Bicharya Rajake Milite Jujai Sannyasi Hoya. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu replied, my dear Ramananda, you should make this request after duly considering whether it is befitting for a sannyasi to meet a king. Rajara Milane Bhikukera Dui Lokanash Uraloka Rahuloke Kore Upahas. If a mendicant meets a king, this world and the next world are both destroyed for the mendicant. Indeed, what is there to say of the next world? In this world, people will joke if a sannyasi meets a king. Ramananda Kohe Tumi Ishwara Swatantra Kore Tomar Bhaya Tumi Naha Paratantra. Ramananda Roy replied, my Lord, you are the supreme independent personality. You have nothing to fear from anyone because you are not dependent on anyone. Prabhu Kohe Ami Manusha Ashrame Sannyasi Koyamana Bhake Vyabhare Vayabasi. When Ramananda Roy addressed Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu objected, saying, I am not the Supreme Personality of Godhead, but an ordinary human being. Therefore, I must fear public opinion in three ways, with my body, mind, and words. Shukla Bastre Mashi Bindu Jaichena Lukai Sanyasera Alpachidra Sarvaloke Gai. As soon as the general public finds a little fault in the behavior of a sannyasi, they advertise it like wildfire. A black spot of ink cannot be hidden on a white cloth. It is always very prominent. Raya Kohe Kata Papir Koriyache Abhyahati Ishvara Sevaka Tomar Bhakta Gajapati. Ramananda Roy replied, my dear Lord, you have delivered so many sinful people. This king Prataparudra, the king of Orissa, is actually a servitor of the Lord and your devotee. Prabhu Kohe Purna Jaiche Dugdera Kalash Surabindu Patekeho Nakore Para. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu then said, There may be much milk in a big pot, but if it is contaminated by a drop of liquor, it is untouchable. So if you have a big pot of milk, and there's just a drop of alcohol in it, it's untouchable. Jajapi Prataparudra Sarva Gunaban Tahare Malina Hoila Ekarajanam. The king certainly possesses all good qualities, but simply by taking up the name king, he has infected everything. He may have so many good qualities, but simply because he has the name Raja, king, therefore everything is ruined. The king certainly possesses all good qualities, but simply by taking up the name king, he has infected everything. Tatape tomarchari mahagraha hoy tabe ane milaha tumi tahara tanoi. But if you are still very eager for the king to meet with me, please first bring his son to meet me. Atmabai jayate putras e shastravani putrera milane jena milibe apani. It is indicated in the revealed scriptures that the son represents the father. Therefore, the son's meeting with him would be just as good as the king's meeting with me. So you can see this chapter is very incredible because it's got so many different things. At first, send a cloth to the king, Nityananda Prabhu, and then Ramananda Roy solicits Mahaprabhu, and the king says, well, in the scriptures it says meeting with the son is the same as meeting with would be just as good as meeting with the king. So send the king's son to me. Okay. The son is non-different from the father, and this is admitted. In Srimad Bhagavatam it is said, Atma Bhai Putra Utpana Iti Vedanus Shashanam. Okay. The Vedas enjoin that one is born as his own son. The son is non-different from the father, and this is admitted in every revealed scripture. In Christian theology, it is believed that Christ, the Son of God, is also God, or in other words, that they are identical. So here, Mahaprabhu will say, bring the king's son to meet with me first, okay? Tabe Raya Jai Sab Rajare Kohila Prabhura Gyayatara Putra Loya Aila. Ramananda Roy then went to inform the king about his talks with Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and following the Lord's orders, brought the king's son to see him. Sundara Rajar Putra Shamalavaran Kishora Vayasa Dirga Kamalanayan. The prince, just entering upon his youth, was very beautiful. He was blackish in complexion and had large lotus eyes. You know, the king's son is very young, and he comes to see Mahaprabhu. The king's son has a darkish complexion and large lotus eyes. Pitambaradharina ange ratna abaran Sri Krishna smarane teho hoila udipan. The prince was dressed in yellow cloth, pitambara. He was dressed in yellow cloth, and there were jeweled ornaments decorating his body. Therefore, anyone who saw him would remember Lord Krishna. Tarideke Mahaprabhu Krishna smrite hoila premaveshe tari mili kohite lagila. Sing the boy, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu immediately remembered Krishna. Meeting the boy in ecstatic love, the Lord began to speak. E Mahabhagavat Jaharadarsane Brajendra Nandana Smriti Hoy Sarvajane. Here is a great devotee. Here's a Mahabhagavat. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said, upon seeing him, everyone can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda. In his in his Anubhashya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that a materialist mistakenly accepts the body and mind as the source of material enjoyment. In other words, a materialist accepts the bodily conception of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not regard the son of Maharaj Prataparudra with the idea that he was a materialist, being the son of a materialist, nor did he consider him the enjoyer, nor did he consider himself the enjoyer. Mayavadi philosophers make a great mistake by assuming that the Satchidananda. Let me read this again, because in his Anubhashya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur states that a materialist mistakenly accepts the body and mind as the source of material enjoyment. In other words, a materialist accepts the bodily conception of life. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu did not regard the son of Maharaj Prataparudra with the idea that he was a materialist, being the son of a materialist. Nor did he consider himself the enjoyer. Mayavadi philosophers make a great mistake by assuming that the Satchidananda Vigraha, the transcendental form of the Lord, is like a material body. However, there is no material contamination in transcendence, nor is there any possibility of imagining a spirituality in matter. One cannot accept matter as spirit, as indicated by the technical words Boma Idyadi. Materialistic Mayavadis imagine the form of God in matter, although according to their imagination, God is unlimitedly formless. This is simply mental speculation. Even though Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, he placed himself in the position of a gopi. He also accepted the king's son directly as the son of Maharaj Nanda, Brajendra Nandana Hari. And thus, this is perfect vision according to the direction of the Vedic culture, as confirmed in Srimad Bhagavatam, Pandita Samadarshina. Such acceptance of the absolute truth, according to Vaishnava philosophy, is explained in both the Mundaka Upanishad and the Katha Upanishad in the following words. Nayam Atma Prata Vachananena Labhya Saminnayana Bahuna Shrutena Yam Evaisha Vrinute Tena Labhyas Tasyaisha Atma Vivrinute Tanum Swam. The Supreme Lord is not obtained by expert explanations, by vast intelligence, nor even by much hearing. He is obtained only by one whom he himself chooses. To such a person he manifests his own form. The living entity is entangled in material existence to his lack of such spiritual vision. Srila Bhaktivedanta Thakur has sung in his Kalyana Kalpataru, Samsare Ashiya Prakriti Bhajiya Purusha Abhimane Mari. When the living entity comes to the material world, he thinks himself the enjoyer. Thus he becomes more and more entangled. So the verse that we read is, here is a great devotee, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu said. Upon seeing him, everyone can remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, son of Maharaj Nanda. So here's a little caution that this is the divine vision of Mahaprabhu. The king very much looked like Krishna. When we meet so many persons that think that their son or daughter, even sometimes they say he looks just like Krishna. But in this case, one could see the son of the king immediately looked like Krishna, dark complexion, large lotus eyes. Kritartha hoilana ami ihara darshane etaboli punatare koila alingane Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu continued, I have become very much obligated just by seeing this boy. After saying this, the Lord again embraced the prince. Prabhu Sparshe Rajaputra Hoila Premavesh Sweda Kamba Ashustamba Pulaka Bishesh. As soon as the prince was touched by Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, symptoms of ecstatic love immediately manifested themselves in his body. These symptoms included perspiration, trembling, tears, being stunned, and jubilation. Then immediately Mahaprabhu embraces the prince, and the prince becomes overwhelmed with Krishna prema, and ecstatic symptoms show themselves in his body. Krishna Krishna kohe nache koraye rodan tarabhagya deki slaga kore bhaktagan. The boy began to cry and dance, and he chanted Krishna Krishna. Upon seeing his bodily symptoms and his chanting and dancing, all the devotees praised him for his great spiritual fortune. Tabe Mahaprabhu tare darya koraila nitya se amai miliha heagyadila. At that time, Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu calmed the youth and ordered him to come there daily to meet him. Vidai hoya raya aila raja putre loya raja sukha paila putre chestadekiya. Ramananda Roy and the boy then departed from Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, and Ramananda took him back to the king's palace. The king was very happy when he heard of his son's activities. Putre lingana kore primavishta hoila sakat parasha jena mahaprabhur paila. Just by embracing his son, the king was filled with ecstatic love, just as if he had touched Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu directly. Say hointe Bhagavan Rajar Nandan Prabhu Bhakta Gana Madhye Hoila Egjan. From then on, the fortunate prince was one of the most intimate devotees of the Lord. In this regard, Srila Prabhupada Saraswati writes, Yat Karunya Kataka Vaibhava Vatam. If Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu simply glanced at someone for a moment, that person immediately turned into one of the most confidential devotees of the Lord. The prince came to see the Lord for the first time, but by the Lord's mercy, the boy immediately became a topmost devotee. This was not in theory, but in practice. We cannot apply the Nagna Matrika Nyaya formula. This states that if one's mother was naked in her childhood, she should continue to remain naked, even though she has become the mother of so many children. If a person is actually blessed, in other words, one does not change. My mother was naked in childbirth, she should go naked her whole life. This is bad logic. And the king's son shows that this logic that a person cannot change is wrong, because he by being touched by Mahaprabhu, he became a great devotee. If a person is actually blessed by the mercy of the Lord, he can immediately become a topmost devotee of the Lord. The logic of Magna Matrika states that if a person is not elevated on such and such a date, he cannot become an exalted devotee overnight, as it were. This particular instance offers evidence to contradict that theory. On the previous day, the boy was simply an ordinary prince, and the next day he was counted as one of the topmost devotees of the Lord. This was all made possible by the causeless mercy of the Lord. The Lord is omnipotent, all-powerful and almighty, and he can act as he likes. And we can say, by the mercy of my Gurudev, I have become changed. One will think like that. I'm still a rascal, but I'm thinking like that. And Srila Govinda Maharaj said, so he will say, Govinda Maharaj said, I will state it like this, because I will not say that I have become blessed or anything like that, but he said, I was a bad boy, and my Gurudev made me into a good boy. That's how Govinda Maharaj stated. Ematra Mahaprabhu Bhaktagana Sange Nirantara Krida Kore Sankirtana Range. Thus Mahaprabhu acted in the society of his pure devotees, performing his pastimes and spreading the Sankirtan movement. Okay, I'm gonna stop here, and on hopefully tomorrow we will continue, and I'll see if this Hariharaya Nama Krishna Jaravaya Nama Hariharaya Jaravaya Maravaya Keshavaya Nama Gopal Govinda Ram Sri Madhusudan Giridhari Gopinatha Maranamohan Sri Chaitanya Nityananda Sri Advaita Chandra Janardan Shiva Sari Gora Bhaktivedanta Jai Rupa Sanatam Bhakta Raghunath Sri Jiva Gopala Bhakta Dasa Raghunath Jai Gosai Kori Charana Bandhan Jao Ete Vignana Shabhishta Puran Jai Gosai Jar Mui Taradas Kasabar Padarenu Mora Panchagras Tare Charana Sevi Bhakta Sanivas Janame Janame More Abilas Jai Gosai Jabe Brache Koilabas Radha Krishna Nitya Lila Korila Prakash Anande Bolo Hari Bhaja Vrindavan Shri Guru Vaishnava Pade Majai Aman Shri Guru Vaishnava Pad Padma Koriyas Harinam Sankirtana Kohe Narothamudas Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama. Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo. Nitai Gora Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo, Hari Bo.
Aisa Parikara Shishi Guru Guranga Gandharvika Giridhara Jo Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Tilak Neriya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Bhakti Nirmalacharya Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaka Charyashta Tara Sadashri Srimad Srila Bhakti Sundar Govinda Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaka Charya Ashtatara Sadashri Srimad Srila Bhakti Rakak Sridhar Dev Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Bhagavan Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Gaur Kishoredas Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Srila Satchidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Vaishnava Sarvabhauma Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Rupanuga Guru Bharga Ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Rupa Sanatana Bhatta Raghunath, Shri Jiva Gopal Bhatta Dasha Raghunath, Shad Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Premsigo, Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu, Nityananda, Shri Advaita Gadadhar, Shri Vasadi, Shri Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. Vishva Varenya, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai. Jai. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai, Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Ki Jai, Srila Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Prabhupad Ki Jai, Srila Bhakti Kusham Ashram Maharaj Ki Jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Navadip Dham Ki Jai, Shri Mayapur Ki Jai, Saparshada Shri Nityananda Prabhu Ki Jai, Saparshada Shriman Mahaprabhu Ki Jai, Shri Koladveep Ki Jai, Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Mat Ki Jai, Soquel Shri Chaitanya Saraswat Sevashram Ki Jai, Ganga Devi Ki Jai, Tulasi Maharani Ki Jai, Bhakti Devi Ki Jai, Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai, Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopi Govardhan Shyam Kunda Radha Kunda Kalindi Yamuna Jo Ki Jai, Shri Purushottam Ram Ki Jai, Baladev Subhadra Jagannath Jo Ki Jai, Bhakti Vigna Vinashaya, Shri Nrsingadev Ki Jai, Bhakta Prabhara Shri Prahlad Maharaj Ki Jai, Samaveda Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai, Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai, all the assembled devotees Ki Jai, Gaur Brahmanande Hari Hari Bol.
Srila Bhakti Pavan Janardan Maharaj Ki